The sky above Varel was purple that day, clouds floating like giant feathers. The alien academy stood tall and strange, filled with different species from many planets. And walking among them was a human named Jack. He was the only human in the entire academy. Most stared at him with curiosity, some with fear, and others with quiet judgment. Jack didn't mind. He had come here to learn alien engineering. He loved machines, old languages, and puzzles no one could solve. But he didn't expect that the biggest puzzle would be a girl, an alien girl with silver skin, glowing eyes, and a voice like soft music. Her name was Sorella. She came from a royal bloodline on Varel. She was beautiful, proud, clever. Too clever sometimes. Many boys tried to talk to her, but she brushed them off like dust. But when Jack joined her class, something changed. She started teasing him. Not in a cruel way, but like a game. "You humans are strange," she told him one day, laughing as he tried to pronounce her home city. "You can't even say Vrel-Shite properly, and yet you think you can master star drives?" Jack just smiled. He wasn't the kind to argue. He watched, he listened, and he waited. That's what made him different. He noticed details others missed, like how her left eye glowed brighter when she was nervous. One afternoon, they sat outside under the floating crystal trees. Sorella was joking with her friends, her voice playful. Jack was sitting nearby, listening, pretending to read. Then it happened. "If a human ever guesses my true name," Sorella said with a smirk, "I'll marry him." Her friends burst out laughing. "Impossible." One said, "No human can even understand our name laws." Another added. Jack looked up slowly. "What did you say?" he asked. Sorella turned her head, amused. "I said, you guess my real name." "I'll marry you," she repeated, almost singing the words. Her friends giggled again, thinking it was just a joke. But Jack didn't laugh. Instead, he nodded slowly and said, "All right." The group fell silent. Sorella blinked, confused. "What do you mean, all right?" she asked. Jack stood up, brushing off his coat. "I accept a challenge," he said, his voice calm. "A name is just a puzzle, and I like puzzles." Sorella's smile faded a little. She hadn't expected him to take it seriously. The joke had turned into something else, something that made her heart beat faster. The others started whispering, unsure if it was still a game or something more. That night, Jack sat in his room with old alien books open all around him. He searched for the history of Virulon names. He read that a true name in her culture was sacred. It was not given at birth, but discovered through soul rites and deep visions. It was known only to the person and the spirit that birthed them. Still, Jack kept reading. The way her voice said certain syllables, the rhythm in her speech, the way she hummed alone, he noticed it all. He wrote down every sound she made, every word she repeated. He had no idea what he was looking for, but something in him said this matters. The next day, Sorella avoided him. She acted busy, skipped her favorite lunch table, and didn't look him in the eyes. Her friends teased her quietly, asking if she was scared the human might actually guess it. She laughed it off, but her laughter was not the same. When Jack walked past her later, he simply said, "I'll find it." She froze for a second, pretending not to hear, but she did. And she felt something strange inside, like her soul had shifted. She shook her head, trying to forget the feeling. "It's just a joke," she whispered to herself. But even she didn't believe it anymore. In a world where names held power, and jokes could become promises, a human had stepped into a game he didn't fully understand. But the moment he accepted the bet, the game became real, and deep in the old archives of the Academy, a forgotten name stirred in silence, waiting to be spoken again. Sorella sat alone near the glowing pond behind the Academy. Her fingers dipped lazily in the water, drawing circles. The laughter from yesterday still echoed in her mind. She had made a joke, just a joke, but now it didn't feel like one. She could still see Jack's eyes, steady and serious. He wasn't joking when he accepted her challenge, and now everyone was whispering about it. Some students thought it was funny. Others warned her to be careful. A few whispered something even stranger, that human. He might actually find it. That evening, Jack visited the Academy archives. The library was ancient, with floating shelves and whispering walls. Each book carried secrets from different stars. He moved carefully, scanning each section labeled. In alien languages, finally, he found what he needed: records about Virilan naming traditions. Jack sat on the cold stone floor and began reading. Virilan names were not just words, they were like poems built from the soul. Each true name was created through memories, feelings, and sacred dreams. Only the one who owned the name knew it. Speaking someone's true name without permission was forbidden, almost a crime. Still, he was fascinated. One page told of a forgotten rite where a true name echoed in nature. Another spoke of an old queen whose name was whispered by the stars. Jack didn't believe in magic, but he believed in patterns, and this culture, this language, had one. Back in her chamber, Sorella was restless. She sat by her window. Watching the moonlight move across the trees, she told herself again, it was only a joke, but her heart kept beating faster whenever she thought about the human. Suddenly, her chamber door opened. An old servant walked in, quiet, respectful, and holding a scroll. "This came for you, princess," the servant said, and bowed. Sorella took the scroll with confusion. There was no seal, no name, just a faint golden thread around it. She opened it carefully. Inside was a short poem, written in old Virelan script. To know her name, follow the flame where crystal trees whisper in starlight came. In silence she sings, in shadows she hides, but speak her song, and fate will decide. Sorella felt a chill. She had never seen this poem before. She didn't know who sent it, but somehow it felt personal. She stared at the last line. Over and over again, in another part of the academy, Jack sat in his room. He was studying her every word, every moment he remembered. He wrote down phrases she had used more than once. When she was alone, she often hummed softly a strange melody. He recorded that sound in his data chip and slowed it down. The melody had repeating notes, like a name, hidden in music. Jack's eyes widened. He was getting closer. Later that night, a knock came at his door. Jack opened it to find a girl named Taryn, a half-human student with Virilan blood. She looked nervous and handed him something. "Take this," she whispered. "I don't want to be seen." Before he could ask, she disappeared into the corridor. It was another scroll. This time, it had the same poem Sorella received, but with one extra line. Written in shaky handwriting, it said, "She dreams of the name, though she doesn't know it." Jack sat down slowly. Someone was helping him more, warning him. Either way, he couldn't stop now. The next day, Sorella saw Jack walking through the garden near the crystal trees. She walked up to him quickly. "You need to stop," she said. Trying to sound strong, he looked at her calmly. "Why?" he asked. "Because it's dangerous," she replied. "You don't understand our traditions." Jack tilted his head. "But you started it," he said gently. She blushed and looked away. It was a joke. She said softly, "Not to me." Jack replied, "I take promises seriously." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she said, "Even if you guess it, you could be punished." Jack nodded. "I know," Sorella sighed. "Then why are you still trying?" Jack smiled and said, "Because something about you tells me your name matters." She didn't know what to say, so she turned and walked away. But her steps were slow, and her heart beat louder as the academy lights dimmed that night. The stars above Virel blinked silently, and somewhere deep beneath, The old stone floors, a name long lost, began to stir. Jack was close, closer than anyone had ever been. But with every step forward, he walked deeper into sacred territory. And if he dared to speak her name, the universe itself might respond. The air inside the old section of the academy was cold and still. No students ever came here. Even the lights flickered as if they feared to stay on. Jack stood before a sealed doorway hidden behind shelves of forgotten scrolls he had found. It mentioned in one of the oldest books, the Chamber of Echoes, the place where Virulon names once lived. He placed his hand on the wall, and it reacted. A soft hum traveled through the stone, and the lock clicked open. Dust floated up as the doors parted. Revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness, Jack hesitated, then stepped inside. He had come too far to turn back. At the bottom of the stairs, he found a room filled with floating glyphs. Each symbol shimmered softly, whispering strange tones. In the center was a round platform, glowing faint blue. Jack stepped onto it, and the symbols lit up brighter. A voice spoke not aloud, but inside his head. "You are not of the flame," it said, "but you seek a name." Jack nodded. "I do," the voice asked. "Do you know the price?" Jack whispered, "No." Suddenly, the room shifted. He saw flashes of Sorella, her childhood, her dreams, her fears, memories not his. Then the voice said, "To speak the name, you must carry part of her soul." Jack gasped, falling to one knee. A heat pressed against his chest. Like fire and light combined, the glyphs spun faster. And one by one, they began to vanish. When the light faded, he found a glowing mark on his wrist, shaped like a flame wrapped around a star. It pulsed. Softly, like a heartbeat. Jack didn't understand what had happened, but something had changed. He could feel hers rally deep in his mind. Not clearly, just a presence. Like hearing a song you've never learned, but somehow know. Meanwhile, on the upper floors, Sorella jolted awake in her chamber. She clutched her chest, gasping for air. She had dreamed of him, Jack, standing in a sea of fire, calling her by a name she didn't know, a name that made her cry. The royal guards noticed her condition and reported it to the high elders. Soon, a small council gathered in secret. Old alien priests, noble scholars, and her father's representative spoke in hushed tones. "This human is touching sacred ground." One said he must be removed. Another whispered. But the elder matron raised her hand and said, "No outsider has ever reached the chamber of echoes. If he made it there, the name is awakening." Sorella was called to speak with them. She entered, confused and shaken. The elder matron looked into her eyes and asked, "Child, do you feel him?" Sorella hesitated, then nodded slowly. I don't know how, but yes." The council exchanged looks of concern. "It has begun," one whispered. The threading back in his room, Jack stared at the mark on his wrist. Suddenly, the scroll from before burst into glowing flames and disappeared into ash. Only one word remained on the floor, drawn in light. Soon, that night, Jack returned to the garden. He sat alone near the crystal trees, unsure what to do next. Then a soft voice came from behind him. "You went too far," Sorella said. Jack turned to find her standing there, dressed in ceremonial robes, her eyes glowing softly. "I had to," he said. "I needed to understand." "Understand what?" she asked, voice trembling. Jack looked at her with quiet truth. "You?" She sat beside him, silence falling like mist. Finally, she asked, "Do you know what happens if you say my real name out loud?" Jack nodded. "Yes, you'll be bound to me forever," she said. "No turning back. No undoing." "I know," he replied. She looked away, voice barely a whisper. "I don't even know my full name." Jack tilted his head, surprised. "It hasn't come to me yet," she explained. "It's supposed to come in a vision during the ceremony of light." Jack understood now she wasn't hiding her name. She was waiting for it, but somehow he had gotten closer to it than anyone else. Then maybe, Jack said. I'm not here to steal it. Maybe I'm here to help you find it. Her breath caught in her throat. For a long moment, neither spoke. But the air between them changed softer, warmer, filled with unspoken trust above them. The stars of Varel shifted slightly, and far away, the elder matron watched through her glowing mirror. She turned to the others and said, "It has begun, just like the old prophecy warned. If he speaks her name during the ceremony, the bond will awaken something ancient." One elder whispered, "Should we stop it?" The matron shook her head. "No," she said, "we must prepare." Because the name was more than just a name, it was a key, and Jack, whether he knew it or not, was about to unlock something the galaxy hadn't seen in centuries. Asterisk, the day of the ceremony of light was coming closer. The entire academy buzzed with excitement and fear. Every 10 cycles, the royal children of Varel were called to the ancient chamber to receive their true names. It was a moment of destiny. But for Sorella, it now carried something more, something dangerous. She sat quietly in the meditation hall. Her mind was full of noise. Jack's voice, her own heartbeat, the strange warmth that now followed her everywhere, and most of all, the dream she kept. Having a voice calling her name, a name she didn't know, but her soul did. Outside the hall, Jack walked through the garden with Elder Tyron. The old alien scholar had requested to meet him in secret. "You have touched something forbidden," the elder said, voice low. Jack nodded. "I didn't mean to, but you did," Tyron replied. "And now you carry a part of her soul." Jack showed the mark on his wrist, still glowing gently. "It burns sometimes," he said. "Especially when I think of her." Tyron nodded. Slowly, "It's because you echoed her soul," he explained. "You walked through her memories, saw her heart. That bond cannot be undone." Jack looked toward the tall crystal tower where Sorella stayed. "I didn't want to hurt her," he said softly. "You didn't," the elder replied, "but the stars may have chosen something neither of you expected." Later that evening, Sorella was alone in her chamber. The wind blew gently through her open window, carrying the scent of starlight flowers. She felt her chest grow tight, her thoughts spinning, so she closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "Who am I really?" The moment she said it, something deep inside her stirred. A soft hum, a memory, a sound not her own. She heard it clearly now, a voice, warm and steady, speaking a name, the same one from her dreams. It was Jack's voice. She gasped and opened her eyes. The mark on her shoulder began to glow, the same shape Jack carried on his wrist. At the same time, across the academy, Jack froze. His hand burned suddenly, and the mark pulsed bright. He felt a wave of emotion crash through him, fear, confusion, and longing. He ran through the halls, ignoring the whispers and curious glances. He didn't know why, but he had to find her. Something inside him called out. Sorella stood in the center of her chamber, glowing faintly. When Jack burst through the door, they both stopped, staring at each other. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Then, without a word, she whispered, "You said my name." Jack blinked. I dreamed it." "So did I," she said, her voice shaking. "But you said it first." They stood in silence, the marks on their bodies glowing in sync. "I think it's yours," Jack said quietly, "but also mine." Sorella stepped closer, her eyes wide. "How can that be?" Jack shook his head. "I don't know." Then she touched his wrist, and in that moment, their memories collided. She saw what he saw, her childhood laughter, the pond behind the academy, her first dream of the stars. He saw what she saw, his quiet walks, his lonely studies, the first time she smiled at him. Their minds overlapped like a song with two voices, two notes that were always meant to meet, just then. The sky outside roared with thunder, not weather, but energy. The great bell of the academy rang. The ceremony of light was beginning. Guards rushed to Sorella's chamber, stopping when they saw Jack. One drew his staff. The human must not be present. But Sorella raised her hand. "He comes with me," she said with royal authority. "He's part of this now." No one dared challenge her, and so, for the first time in Virulon history, a human walked beside a royal into the naming hall. The sacred chamber was filled with floating candles, ancient runes, and whispering winds. The elders stood in silence as Sorella entered with Jack. Elder Matron raised her eyes slowly. "So it is true," she said. "The bond has formed." Sorella knelt before the circle of light. The runes around her began to glow. A beam of light fell upon her head. "This is the moment," the elder said. "Speak your true name, or let it be spoken." She looked at Jack, and Jack looked at her. He took one step forward. The elders gasped. "Human, do not dare," but Jack knelt beside her. He closed his eyes, and from his lips came the name, the same name that had haunted their dreams. It wasn't a word, it was a melody, a memory, a meaning. The chamber shook with power. The runes flared to life, the candles burst with light, and Sorella began to weep, not from fear, but from knowing that was her name. Her soul had always known it, and now the stars did too. The flames of the sacred hall rose higher as Jack spoke the name. The sound echoed across the ancient stone walls. The runes on the floor pulsed with golden light, and Sorella, still kneeling, could no longer hold back her tears. She felt the name wrap around her spirit like a warm blanket. Her soul finally had a shape, a truth, a song, and Jack had sung it first. The elders stood frozen, eyes wide. No one had ever dared speak a Virulon royal's name before her ceremony, and no outsider had ever come close to guessing one. Yet this human, this quiet boy from Earth had done it. Elder Matron slowly stepped forward, her long robe brushing against the glowing runes. "Speak your name again," she ordered. Jack glanced at Sorella, who gave the smallest nod. He spoke it again, gently, clearly. The hall trembled with the sound. A glowing beam shot from the center of the chamber and touched the mark on his wrist. Another beam touched Sorella's shoulder. Their symbols flared and then merged into a single shape, a spiral wrapped around a star, floating in the air between them. The elders gasped again, this time in awe. "The threading is complete." One whispered, "The bond is sealed." Another murmured, but not everyone looked happy. A tall elder with a scar across his cheek stepped forward. "This breaks our law," he growled. "A human should not carry the name of royalty." Sorella rose to her feet, her body glowing. "With soft power, then change the law," she said, voice calm but unshaken. "He spoke my name before I even knew it myself." The scarred elder shouted, "This is a trick. He has stolen from our sacred flame." But Elder Matron raised her staff, silencing the room. "The flame does not lie," she said, "and the soul does not bend for lies." She turned to Jack, her voice now softer. "You did what no one has done in 1,000 years, human. You heard the soul of another and gave it a name. Now you must understand what it means." Jack nodded slowly. "Tell me." The matron looked at both of them. "You are now bonded not by law, not by force, but by soul. Where one walks, the other will feel. She is harmed, you will feel pain. If you die, she will dream of your death forever." The words weighed heavy. But neither Jack nor Sorella stepped back. The elders lit the final ceremonial flame, and the Academy's great bell rang 3 times. The sound traveled through the sky of Virel. Across forests, mountains, and even into deep space, the galaxy had just changed. Outside the chamber, The academy grounds were filled with students and officials waiting to see what had happened. When the doors opened, Jack and Sorella stepped. Out side by side, their marks still glowing, their bond visible for all to see. Some gasped, others fell silent. Then one virulent student whispered, "He really did it." And the crowd began to murmur, not with hate, but with something else: wonder, respect, maybe even fear. Far away, deep in the royal palace of Virel's capital city, the news reached the High Council. The Grand Seer stood in silence as a messenger repeated what had happened. He turned to the star map behind him, watching the symbol of the bond slowly appear above Sorella's name. "It has begun," he said. "The ancient bloodline has chosen a human." A young councilwoman asked, "Should we interfere?" The seer shook his head. "If we do, we risk waking the deeper flame back at the academy." Sorella sat with Jack in the garden where it all started. She wore a silver robe now, her name etched in glowing letters across her back. "Do you regret it?" she asked, looking at him from the corner of her eye. "No," Jack said. "Do you?" She smiled softly. "No." They sat quietly for a while. Then Jack said, "You said you'd marry the one who guessed your name." She raised an eyebrow. "You're holding me to that." Jack chuckled. "Only if you want to." She looked up at the stars. "Let's see how many more names you can guess first." But deep down, both of them knew the bond was already stronger than tradition. It was written in light, sealed by spirit, and witnessed by the stars. And as the stars turned above them, the name that had once been a joke was now carved into history. Not just of Virel, but of every world that would hear the story. Of the human who spoke a soul's true name. And the alien girl who never laughed the same way again. Asterisk, the stars above Virel shifted slightly. Not that anyone could see it with their eyes, but in the ancient observatory tower. The celestial maps updated silently. A symbol of flame wrapped around a star appeared beside Sorella's name. And next to it, a name that no Virelon records had ever carried before: Jack Solon. Human across the galaxy, leaders of distant alien empires received encrypted signals from Virel. The message was short but world-shaking. A human has formed. A soul bond with a royal Virelon. Some laughed, others frowned. But one species, one forgotten empire, reacted with alarm. On a dark moon called Calveron, hidden deep in a starless system, the Wrathbound stirred. These ancient creatures once ruled the galaxy through control of names and souls. They were banished long ago, their magic sealed. But now, their ancient machines pulsed back to life. Their leader, cloaked in black and silver, whispered a single word: impossible. Back on Virel, Jack sat with Sorella in the crystal tree garden. Everything around them felt normal, but nothing was the same. He could feel her thoughts even when she was silent. Not full sentences, just emotions. Shapes, colors, when she was angry. His heart raced. When she laughed, he felt warmth in his chest. It was beautiful, but also frightening. Sorella had changed too. Since the ceremony, her powers had grown stronger. She could touch a flower and make it bloom. She could sense lies in the voices of others. It was as if the bond had unlocked something ancient in her blood. One evening, the academy called both of them to the high hall. Elder Matron stood waiting, surrounded by glowing scrolls and floating stones. "Your bond has awakened something," she said. "Old forces are watching." Jack looked around. "What kind of forces?" "Things older than our people," she replied. "The Wrathbound have stirred." Sorella went pale. "The Soul Stealers." "Yes," the elder said. "They once ruled by claiming the names of others, using their true names to enslave them." Jack frowned. "But they were defeated long ago," the elder nodded. "But your bond, your success, has made the impossible possible again." Sorella looked at Jack, her eyes wide. "They're coming for us," she whispered. Elder Matron nodded. or worse for your bond. In the following days, the Academy began defense preparations. Warships were activated, barriers raised, scouts sent to the stars. But Jack and Sorella were told to remain together at all times. Your connection is now a beacon, the elder explained. And also a shield. Despite the fear, they still had quiet moments. Jack taught Sorella how to play an old Earth game. With pebbles and sticks, she taught him how to float small stones using her focus. They laughed under the twin moons like two kids who didn't know the galaxy was watching them. But that peace ended when a scout ship returned in flames. Only one message came from the dying pilot. They know the name. Panic spread through the council. If the Wrathbound knew Sorella's true name, they could try to steal it, or worse, twist the bond and turn it into a weapon. Jack clenched his fists. We can't let that happen. The elders agreed on a desperate plan. They would move Jack and Sorella to the core temple, a sacred place buried beneath Varel's oldest mountain. There, the flame that first created the soul bond. Rituals still burned, only it could strengthen their bond enough to protect it. As they prepared to leave, Sorella pulled Jack aside. Are you scared? She asked. He nodded. Yes. She smiled faintly. Me too. Then she reached out and held his hand. But I'm glad it's you. The journey to the core temple was quiet but tense. They passed silent forests, glowing lakes, and fields of whispering grass. The temple itself was made of ancient crystal and stone, carved before memory. Inside, the great flame danced without fire, warm but untouchable. As they stepped toward it, their marks began to glow again. A voice echoed from the chamber walls. Do you come as one? Jack looked at Sorella, and she nodded. We do, they said together. The flame stretched toward them, curling around their joined hands. A sudden flash of light covered everything, and then they saw each other. Not with eyes, but with soul. All the pain, all the joy, all the memories from birth to now. Nothing hidden, nothing denied. When the light faded, they were still standing, but now their marks were gone, replaced by a single glowing band around both their wrists. The bond was no longer a thread. It was a chain of light unbreakable. Behind them, the temple walls rumbled. A voice whispered through the stone. They come. Sorella looked at Jack. No more hiding. She said. Jack nodded. No more running. Because the bond they shared was no longer just between them. It had become a weapon, a shield, and maybe the galaxy's last hope against the dark. The stars above Varel were burning brighter than ever. Some said it was a sign, others said it was war. But for Jack and Sorella, it was the beginning of something no one could stop now. They stood at the edge of the core temple, looking out. Over the valley, in the skies above, wrathbound ships had begun to appear. Their long black hulls blocked the stars like shadows with teeth. Every virulent warship was being deployed. Every tower was glowing with shields, but it would not be enough. Because the wrathbound did not come to conquer land, they came to take a soul, inside the temple. The High Elders formed a final circle of light. They raised ancient relics and chanted old songs that hadn't been sung in 1,000 years. In the center of the circle stood Jack and Sorella, side by side, their wrists bound with a chain of glowing light. Elder Matron spoke. Do you understand what this means? Jack nodded. We do. Sorella took a deep breath, her heart steady. I will not let them take my name, she said. And I will not let them break our bond, Jack added. The matron raised her staff. Then speak your vows. Jack turned to Sorella, and the world fell silent. He spoke slowly, carefully. I vow to carry your truth, to protect your soul, to honor your name. I vow to stand with you, even if the stars fall, even if the galaxy burns. Sorella smiled, tears in her glowing eyes. She stepped forward and placed her hand on his chest. I vow to share my name, to trust you with my spirit, to walk with you beyond this life. I vow that no matter who tries to claim me, I belong with you." The chain around their wrists flashed one final time, then disappeared. Now, the bond was no longer visible. It was deeper than light, deeper than skin. It was carved into their souls. Just then, the temple shook. A huge black ship broke through the clouds above. The Wrathbound had arrived. The voice of their leader echoed through every speaker, every screen, even through the minds of the people. "Give us the name, and we will spare your world, Elder." Matron replied with one word, "No." The black ship fired a pulse beam, and the mountain cracked. But before the blast could reach the temple, a shield of golden energy formed. It was not from the temple. It came from Jack and Sorella, standing hand in hand. The chain of their bond returned not around their wrists, but around the sky itself. It expanded like a net of fire, blocking the next wave of Wrathbound energy. The invaders screamed in rage, their dark magic failing to take hold. One of them tried to speak Sorella's name, but choked on air. The bond protected her identity, sealing it from any who would use it for harm. Sorella looked up, eyes blazing. "You want my name?" She shouted, "Come and earn it," and together, she and Jack stepped forward into the open sky. With the flame of the temple behind them and the stars above them, they rose through the air. Lifted by the very energy of their soul bond, Jack raised a hand and sent a wave of light toward the nearest ship. Sorella followed with a pulse of power from her heart. The ship exploded in a burst of gold and black. The people of Varel watched from the ground. They had never seen a human and a royal Varellan fight as one. They had never seen power like this, and they cheered not in fear, but in hope. The Wrathbound fleet began to fall back. One by one, their ships faded into smoke and vanished from the sky. Not destroyed, but banished, the bond between Jack and Sorella had changed something in the galaxy's core, a rule rewritten, a path restored. Hours later, as the sun rose over Varel, the skies were clear. The elders announced the battle had ended. The soul of Varel was safe, and a new chapter had begun. In the garden, where everything started, Jack and Sorella walked quietly. The trees sparkled. In the sunlight, Sorella touched a flower, and it bloomed instantly. Jack sat beside her and looked at the stars. "You know," he said, "when you joked about marrying the man who guessed your name, I thought you were messing with me." Sorella laughed softly. "I was, but now I don't think it was a joke." Jack said. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Neither do I," and far away, in the quiet records of the galaxy, a new entry was made. The human who spoke the soul of a princess. The girl who joked about marriage and found something deeper, not just a name, not just a bond, but a vow, under starlight, forever.